Hey guys, welcome back to the Better Project, where we crush the stigma that surrounds mental health by talking to real people and sharing raw stories. I'm your host, Nick Patar. Today, we are joined by Todd Jarratt. Toddy, welcome, brother.
Thank you, brother. It's been epic to put this together, and I'm excited to come on and chat and share as much value as we can with everyone.
We finally got here. It's taken a few months to organize it, but we're here, man. And you're another legend from the sunny coast. I swear to God, I'm manifesting this, bro. I'm manifesting going up there.
Oh, there is certainly a community up here that's growing and expanding. That's for sure. It was last year, around June or July was actually when I sort of took it into my own hands to start to create a community up here, and that's obviously led to a whole lot of growth and movements and circles being created. And it's really cool to look back and go, wow, like I was a catalyst for that. So to know that there's so many people now, even like I have a lot of friends in Victoria that are like, hey, we're going to move up. And I'm like, what, why? And they say, well, like I see the community, I see all of the people up there now. So it is really cool. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a mad vibe coming out of there, bro. How long you been up there for?
Start of 2017, I came up here for 2 weeks to intern under a coach, and then went back home at that point, I was living in Bendigo, in Victoria. And yeah, then after like 2 weeks of being back down there, I moved up. So end of Jan 2017. So it's at 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, 5 years.
Yeah, nice. Well,
Yeah,
what do you love
probably
most about it, bro?
the consistent weather. Oh
Yes.
man, like it's like all year round. It's almost all year round. It's like 15 to 30 degrees. Like it doesn't have those big highs and big lows. Like I grew up in a little outback town in New South Wales, halfway between Sydney and Adelaide, second flattest place on earth with like 2,000 people. And it was in what they call an extreme climatic zone. So we get up to like 48 degrees Celsius every summer. I remember there was one year we hit 52 degrees Celsius, and that was the day I was working out on the farm.
Ooh.
And the tractor I had didn't have aircon, so I literally was just driving the tractor with the door open, and we'd work like from 4 a.m. through to like 10 a.m. before it hit the peak of the day. But then in winter it got down to the zeros, and at times it could get to like -1 and stuff. It'd never snow because of its location, but man, I love the consistency up here. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's just the location, like you got the beach, then you got the mountains. It's just like the best of both worlds, bro.
Yes, and I'm where I am right now is like 200 meters from the beach, and yeah, the mountains that we go climb and stuff are like 25-minute drive. So
Ooh,
yeah,
wow. I seen
yeah,
on your Instagram, you're posting stories and there was a balcony and had a mad view. Is that where you live, or was that somewhere you were?
yeah. Oh, it depends. So there's one that I'm usually on, which looks out straight to the beach directly here, but then the other one that I've been on, I'm guessing you're talking about with all the forestry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's at Dr. Espen's. So I'm partnered with Dr. Espen, working with him. So I'm down there with him Wednesdays to Fridays, and I stay down in his place up in Springbrook Mountain. Yeah, and he's on a bunch of acres, and his balcony just overlooks. You can see from Brisbane all the way down to Byron Bay, which is like 100 and maybe 130k distance. Yeah, and you can see the lights all the way from Brizzy to Byron, including the whole surfers. So yeah, it's epic.
Wow. Dude, I'm getting chills, bro. I need to get up there.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Dude, let's backtrack a bit. You mentioned growing up in rural New South Wales. What was that like? Tell me a bit about your upbringing. Were you a little shit or were you a good kid?
I wish I would say I was a little shit. No, I was like the nerd, the kid that would never do anything wrong. Like as an example, my friends and I, the few friends that we sort of that I had in the circle, like we'd go out and they'd want to go egg houses, and I'd be the one to be like standing on the corner. I wouldn't throw the eggs, and I'd be ready to run. Like they'd all be there pegging the eggs up on the roof, screaming and shouting, and I'm like standing at the corner shaking because for me, like my parents were pretty strict.
Yeah.
So I grew up. I'm the baby of the family. So my sisters are 5 and 7 years older than me. So they were really close. And then there was obviously kind of like 5 years, and then the little boy comes along. But yeah, I guess I was labeled as gifted in year 3 in primary school, which is to say that, like, I guess my intelligence is quite unique or rare. And as a result of that, they ended up skipping me ahead a year in primary school. So I skipped year 4 and went straight up to year 5, which we thought was what I needed. And at the time, really, like, intellect wise, it is what I needed. But I was bullied so badly in that year that I ended up basically not wanting to go to school anymore. I'd cry every morning about going to school, and had told mum that I didn't want to live anymore. And that, as a 10-year-old kid, you don't know how to commit suicide or take your own life, but that's the level of trauma I was going through. And I know that it was severe because it's actually been a major, like, what we call like a gestalt event, which is like a trigger event in my whole timeline of my life. Was whenever I go back to, like, when people go, remember that first pain point, or remember this challenge or this thing that came up, it's almost always that year. And the reason for that, which I now know, was because obviously I was with my initial year group. So let's say the year 3 kids. And then I've skipped up to year 5. So I no longer belong with the year 3 kids. So they've kind of like separated themselves from me, and they're like, no, you don't belong with us anymore. You're up there. But then skipping into the year above, they've already got their friendship groups and everything. And they saw me as different because I've skipped. Like, I'm not just a new kid coming in from a different school. I've been within the school and skipped up. So like, well, why are you special? Why do you skip up? And so I didn't fit in with them either. So there was like 2 year groups. And then there was like me. So at school, I really had no friends. That's just the reality of it. I just did what I could to survive. Like, I just hang out in the groups, and I just cop the bullying and cop being picked on, and just sort of get by. And what ended up happening was, when I did skip up in that year, and I was obviously going through that emotional trauma and that bullying and those challenges, was it was either they could skip me ahead another year, because that was kind of what we're at. I was topping the classes to begin with in the year above as well. Or I could be, I could maintain. And for me, I was not a fan of the idea of staying where I was because of the bullying. So I thought, what we'll do to overcome this was put me back in my previous year group. So I remained in year 5 so that my past friends we could reconnect. But really that just made it worse, because they were like, well, before you were smart, now you repeated. Why'd you repeat? Are you dumb or something? Like, they just didn't get it. And obviously I didn't really get it either at that point in my age, my life. And what ended up happening was I didn't fit in with them either, because they were like, well, you don't really belong with us either. You've been up there. And again, like that was a thing that I'm aware of now, was when I went up to the next year group, my way of attempting to fit in with the year group above was like, if I needed to, and the other kids from my previous year group were around, I'd put them down. I would bully them, so that, that's how we survive in tribal mentality. If you're the weakest link and you find someone else, you'll put the pain onto them to divert it. And so that's how I was surviving in that next year, was that year above was diverting the pain. And I look back now, and obviously there's a lot that I've had to work through with that and understand that. And eventually really what happened was, when I was back in that my initial year group and I wasn't fitting in, I was being picked on and bullied for being different. And what came of that was, our ego protects us from pain, and it will make stories. And they can be like servient, they can help us, or they can be damaging, empowering or limiting, as some people might call them. And look, I'm not sure if it was something that was supposed to happen for me, if it's like it's a part of my destiny, but my story became one of like drive and power and motivation. And that was, if you're going to pick on me for being different, I'm going to be as different as I can be. Like, I'm going to be nothing like you guys. So in year 5, that's when my kind of my journey started, of always being different. Whenever I wanted to do X, I'd do Z. When they'd zig, I'd zag. And that led to me pushing really, really hard and having this protection mechanism of my ego, that different equals protection. And as that sort of continued on, I was really fortunate that I got ducks in primary school, which was expected. But then I went away to boarding school towards Sydney, a couple of hours towards Sydney. And it wasn't until around the start of year 9 where I got the confidence to really, really push. Year 7 and 8 at boarding school, because of the pain I went through at primary school of being, the special one, in year 7 and 8, I do pretty well, but I was in the top classes, but I wouldn't be the top guy. So I didn't have the target on me or be that arrow. Obviously still copped a lot of bullying at that school, there was a lot of kids that were going to the AFL, and I raced motocross. So basically, like the short version of my boarding school years was I spent most of my afternoons hiding in the library because I didn't want to go out on the field because I know I'd get picked on and bullied and threatened and whatnot. So I'd go and watch the TV in the library or study or, watch motorbike videos or play games. And that continued until really all the way through boarding school. But at the start of year 9, I hit puberty through like the summer holidays. And that's when I got a bit of confidence because I lost a bit of body fat and started getting some abs. And, there's a few girls that had some attention on me. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I started to press and go hard with my marks and started doing really well. And what then happened was I started to, I had that story already subconsciously going of different equals, protection. But then in year 9, I started looking at, what successful people in the world were doing, because by this point in time, I'd already started sports commentary. So I'd started that in year 7. I got injured while racing motocross, broke my wrist and had surgery. And my local club had a race meeting on, and, my mum and dad were like, look, we're going to volunteer and help out. You're good at, everyone and you're good at talking. Why don't you bring them together? And so I was doing this at like 13, like prepubescent little pipsqueak kid. But again, it was something that was different. No one else was doing this at my age, and I was getting recognition for that. So my story was like developing of, different is protection, different's good. You get love, you get adoration, you get appreciation for being different. And so then what I started to do was look at, well, what's the best in the world? And my story started to accumulate to being different creates success, because we know that, 99% of the world's wealth is with 1% of the world's population. So it's like, well, what are they doing? So my story was, I need to be different to be successful. And that created this ridiculous internal drive where through high school, I was in year 10 and I was racing state titles in motocross, and I had a crash down in Rosebud in Victoria and actually ended up putting my left kidney in 3 pieces. And now I look back now and I didn't realize it, but if the fascia around my kidney burst, I would have bled out and died. The doctors don't, to this day, when, obviously speaking to them at that time, they didn't know how the kidney could be in 3 pieces, but the skin, the fascia had kept it intact. They were like, it's, to them, they're like, we don't get it. Mm. And now I look back and I go, there was a reason I didn't die. Like, I'm here for a reason. But that was a pretty big one for my family, for mum and dad especially. And that started to point me a little bit more, because there was a bit of fear that came from that, because I wasn't allowed out of bed for 6 weeks. I wasn't allowed to exercise for 3 months because of the worry that if I got knocked, it would burst and I'd bleed out. So I actually moved back to Hay to finish out my schooling, because it was either you continue at boarding school and give up racing motocross, which was my safe place, because I was bullied so much at school. But at motocross, I was accepted because my kind of different was kind of like fun there. And I felt like we were all like family at motocross. So that was like my safe place. So I was like, I'm not giving up good school marks or whatever to lose my family. So I went back to Hay to continue racing and finished high school there. And by that point, I'd been commentating, junior nationals in motocross and the women's nationals and some pro events. And at the finish of year 12, I got ducks of high school, which was awesome. But again, it was also expected because I was at the Hay High School. I was going into exercise science and exercise physiology and into uni. And at that point in time, I got approached to also start commentating the pro motocross series in Australia, and to manage the Kawasaki junior race team for Australia. So that was I just turned 18 and I was having these, you could call them opportunities, but they were big responsibilities as well. Mm. So that's what happened going into uni. And I think toward the end of second year at uni, I'd already been PTing for quite a while at uni studying, because I wanted to get my coaching reps and get my hands dirty while I was learning. I went down and interned at Woodford Sports Science Consulting, which I know you've followed Woody in the past. And he was my first real in-person mentor that gave me the spark for life and passion, because he was and is so passionate.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is it like? Because watching the videos, and I think he came to New South Wales and did like a seminar thing one time, and I went there, and just the passion on the bloke, I was doing, as I mentioned before, I was studying sport and exercise science. The reason I
Mm.
dropped out was because one of the reasons was I seen how passionate he was, and I was like, I'm not that passionate. Like, I'm doing a disservice to people if I'm not really truly in it. Like, you can tell that
Yeah.
guy is full in and he's passionate about it. It's like, yeah, there needs to be more people like him.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. And I agree. And that was the biggest thing that I got from, obviously I learned so much down there. And that was the foundation for my, my sport and exercise science, or my coaching career with athletes started and stemmed from there. Because he was so passionate and I had my mindset of different equals success, he and I were like, it was like best buds, because he was driven and I was driven. And so it was like the third week of the mentorship, the internship. And I actually went up to him and said, "Who's the best intern you've ever had?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "Who's the best intern you've ever had?" Because back at Woody's, most people would like see him walk in, and when you got like the alpha that's got the massive energy, and people are like, "Ooh, don't look at that guy, don't talk to him, head down." It's almost like, ooh, they're kind of scared of him because of that energy. They don't want to do something wrong. I'm the opposite. I find the biggest dog in the room, and I'm like, "Let's fucking go."
Mm.
Like, I want to talk to you. I want to learn from you. And I guess for me, I've realized that when someone does that to me and they come forward with that like direct respect, that I appreciate them and their path. So at that point in time, I said to him, like, "Yeah, who's the best intern you've ever had?" And he said, "Stubbsy." And I said, "Oh, I'm going to beat Stubbsy. Tell me what I need to do." And that obviously took him back. But from that conversation, he kept an eye on me the next week, and they offered me a position to start working at Woodford while I was I was fourth week intern. It was the earliest that ever offered an intern a position. And that came because I was like, this is what I want and I'm going to get it. And that obviously, turned into me kind of becoming a coach within that space while I was interning. And the biggest thing Woody told me was, if you want to be the best, which was, my vision was like, I'm going to outdo you, Woody. That's my vision. He's like, you need to go to America and you need to go to a college and experience it over there. Because obviously that's what he did. And that's the part that he'd experienced. So that's where I was enrolled to do my master's of exercise physiology back down in Vic. And I got to a point where I was like, physiology was more like, working with older people or geriatrics or cardiac rehab and things like that. And it just didn't feel, I was like, that's not me. Like, I'm too passionate to be working with those
boring,
people.
bro.
I'd be like yelling at an 80-year-old, like, "Go harder." So back then, so I was like, what's my plan A? And my plan A was, I'm going to a college in America. And at that point in time, I guess, part of my story is I'm a plan A person. And at that point in time, that meant was like, over 3 days, I culminated a list of all of the colleges in America in Division 1 and Division 1A colleges that I wanted to intern at. I got every college info. I got every strength and conditioning employee's name, their email, their phone number. And I just had compiled that document to be ready to just shotgun my resume and my cover letter and my videos and stuff out to everyone. And I think I shot it out to like 6 universities to begin with, 6 colleges. And looking back now, it was really cool because like 4 of them saw my coaching reel of me coaching at the Human Mechanics. And they were like, "Whoa, like, you know what you're doing. We'd love to have you." So I was accepted into 4 or so of those colleges immediately. And a couple of them were pretty epic Div 1 colleges, like Purdue University. It was another along the lines of like, it was like a University of Southern, like a USC, Southern California, but I can't remember, it might have been Carolina. Anyway, I also realized that whenever someone would come to me, I'd never tell them to do the shotgun approach. I'm like, pick what you want and go after that with determination and with a willingness that you can make it happen, and it will. And so I was like, if there was one college in all the world that I'd want to go and intern at and experience, where would it be? And I knew it was Stanford, because Stanford was one of the best in their sporting performance in the world, but also one of the best in their education in the world. You'll go to like Harvard or Yale or Oxford, which are, or they're all primary academic. They don't have great sporting accolades, performance. Yeah. And then you can go to some other colleges like Alabama, for example, is well known for being incredible in their sporting department, but they would literally just write students off so that they can perform, like they weren't worried about the marks. And for me, my background, obviously education and the sport, I wanted both. And I had no idea how I'd get to Stanford because it was such a highly ranked school. And it's a challenge to get in there, even if you're a top student in America. And I found out that one, they don't take international students. Two, it'd be a challenge in the visa. And three, you need to know people from the inside. And I was like, well, I can't do number one. I can't do number two. I'm going to find someone on the inside. And it actually happened, just so happened that Woody one day on LinkedIn shared Matt Buson's post. And I was like, oh, who's this guy? Clicked. And he said he was a performance director and university lecturer at Sunshine Coast. And I looked through and it was like intern Stanford University. And then he'd gone to University of Southern Florida and he'd been like their athlete development manager there. And I was like, oh, there it is. So I reached out to Boos and, I might have got a message back in the beginning and that was it. And then I said what I wanted and what I wanted to do and didn't hear back from him. And at this point I had his phone number, his email, and his LinkedIn and Facebook. So I had him on 4 platforms. And I called him, I emailed him, I messaged him, and I texted him every day for 28 days straight. It was the 1st of December, the first day that I contacted him, like after I hadn't heard from him. And I just hit him every single day. And on the 29th of December, 2016, just as I was finishing my science degree and about to go into my master's of ex-physiology, he picked up after I'd been calling him. He picks up the phone. First things he said to me, and I apologize to my nan who's going to be listening to this because I'm going to swear. He's like, "You don't fucking give up, do you?" And because he's American, part American, half. And I was like, "No, I don't, because I know what I want, and I'm going to get there." And he was like, "You're so fucking persistent." And in a nutshell of that conversation, he was like, "I respect the fact that you haven't given up on this. Like, I see that there's something in you that wants this." I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "What do I need to do?" And he's like, "Look, I can't give you a letter of recommendation without having seen you coach personally." And I was like, "Righto, done. I'll come up to Queensland. I'll come and intern under you. I'll coach personally to get that letter of recommendation." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't really, if that's the case, we'll work it out. I don't have a whole lot going on in the first couple of days of the year, the first week of the year, but you're welcome to come up mid-Jan." Anyway, it was the 29th I packed, the 30th I left. And I sent him a message like 5 hours down the road. I was like, "I'm on my way." And he was like, "I have nothing on for the first week of January." I was like, "That's cool. I'll just come follow you. Like, I'll just come get to know you and follow you at the beach and whatever." And I came up to the sunny coast and basically just, I guess you'd say, dip my toes in and put myself on the line and show my willingness to learn and my willingness to take on feedback and that I wanted this and that whatever feedback could come at me, I'd take it and I'd apply it. And I guess he and LD Black, who was a world champion powerlifter, they were coaching together up here on the sunny coast at the time at Core Strength Fitness. They were like, "Wow, like you've got something. Do you want to move up here and coach athletes out of the gym, run our PT courses, teach at the university, and you'll get your letter of recommendation to go to Stanford." And I was just like, that as an opportunity of me just finishing my degree and already being recognized to teach in another degree, in the same degree, was a big thing for me. And I was like, absolutely, because down in Victoria, I was primarily already running the athlete academy and I wasn't learning from people in my environment. I was only learning from, people online, the Cressies, the Boyles, the Move You people back then and whatnot. And so, yeah, moved up to the sunny coast. And man, by this point in time, I'd started to develop a deeper interest in the mindset side of things. And that continued. And I coached and taught at the university and whatnot in that first year. And what ended up happening was, because of my passion that I brought to the university, a lot of the students were going, "How can we learn more from you? Like, how do we get involved with you? How do we learn from you specifically?" And that ended up by demand creating the TJT mentorship. TJT came from, my athletes would call me TJ for Todd Jarratt, and then they'd say, "I'm TJ trained." So TJ trained became TJT. So that's where the mentorship and all of that started, and the next year in 2018, the start of 2018, after I'd been on the sunny coast for a year, I went over to Stanford. And by that point in time, I didn't want to do the 6-month internship because I'd already learned so much from Boost, who'd passed me most of Stanford, protocols, that I wanted to go over there. So I had a couple of weeks at Stanford, which was phenomenal, working in their NFL program, working in their Olympic sport programs, working with Olympic gold medalists and world champions in a multitude of sports. And then I went over to Mike Boyles and Eric Cressy's, and then went down to Agoski Method and Les Spellman Performance in San Diego, so all across the country. And it was really interesting though, because at this point in time, although my expertise and what I was known for was strength and conditioning with athletes, my passion was in mindset. And so most of the guys I was asking questions around was mindset. And the two leading coaches at Stanford, the head, Coach Turley, Shannon Turley, his background was, sports science, strength and conditioning, but then he'd done his further study in psychology, as had Cullen Carroll, who was 2IC. And so I was hitting them with all of my questions around mindset and what they feel makes a difference with, the winning teams and the performing athletes and that side of things. And came back to Australia and was lit on fire basically from that time. And I was like, whoa, we've got a lot of stuff to bring to Australia. And so at this point in time, I was teaching at uni, training athletes in the gym, consulting online, running the mentorship, and attempting to maintain my health and a relationship at the same time. And basically my health started to go down, and it was getting worse and worse. And I ended up in hospital towards the end of 2018. I'd been hospitalized in 2016 from how hard I was working. And I make this really clear because I shared this at an event on the weekend. I shared that I've had 2 near-death experiences. And I want to make it really clear that when I say near-death experience, it wasn't a suicidal attempt. It was the fact that my immune system was attacking my body. So when I say I nearly died, it was because of my body shutting down, not by a state of a mental health challenge, because that's come up a few times. So I just am making that clear now from that point of awareness that came up on the weekend. So I was hospitalized for a couple of weeks in 2016, and then they just gave me some heavy medication and I was all sweet. Went back to living how I was, and the drive and the motivation and not sleeping enough. Basically, I'd wake up at 4:30 to be at the gym coaching by 5:15. I'd coach from 5:15 till around 8:15. So basically 3 hours straight. I'd then drive straight to the uni, and I'd be teaching at uni from 9, usually straight through until 4:30 or 5. And then I would go back to the gym and I'd coach from 5:30 till around 8:30. I'd get home at 9, have dinner at 9:30, 10, and then I'd study and research from 10 till 2, and then I'd get up again at 4:30. So on an average night, I was probably getting 2.5, 3 hours sleep, and I wasn't resting during the day. I wouldn't switch off. I didn't do anything in that way. And at that point in time, I didn't know any different. I was just so committed to my mission and that place of I've got to achieve that. My body was just slowly breaking down. As an easy example to at least give context for people, there was a point of a year and a half or so that I was, every single day that I was going to the toilet, feces, poo, shit, whatever you want to call it, I was excreting just blood and mucus for 18 months without, doing anything about it or taking it seriously, because I was just I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going. Now that I look back, most people that have what I had, they're in hospital within 3 to 4 days. And I'd lived like that for, a year and a half, because I was just so mindset fixed on where I was going. And it ended up getting to the point where start of July, end of June 2019. Yep. I was emergency hospitalized and was in there for a couple of weeks. And that's when I had to have people around me tell me I needed to stop. And I still wasn't ready to stop. I was like, no, I'll run the mentorship from the hospital. I'll Zoom in or whatever it was. And, that's just where I was at. And I had a really good friend of mine, Nick Bennett, who I owe the world to, because he was the man that, sat with me and questioned me. And he said, what's the point of doing what you're doing if you're going to kill yourself? Like, if your body's can't cope, what's the point? Like, you're going to be gone within 12 months to 2 years. And, the question he asked me, we were sitting at we actually got out and got to the beach, maybe like 2 days after I'd been released from the hospital. And he said, what do you feel like is the most important thing for you to be able to serve in the long term? And it was, it's like, the words were, you got to take a leap of faith. And so that's what I did. I stopped TJT. I stopped training athletes. I stopped consulting. I stopped everything from July 2018, 2019, I was sort of in and out of hospital a couple of times. And then September 2019, was re-emergency hospitalized. And that's when I had the first, quote unquote, near death experience. And looking back now, I wouldn't have died. I would have been saved through surgery if things went well. But, when the surgeons come in and they walk into the room and you've got your mum on speakerphone, because my family are down in Victoria, and they walk in and literally it was like this blunt. There was like the bedside manner was woeful. I had a family friend with me on my side, mum on speakerphone and me. They basically walked in and they said, you're in a very, very bad way. You're not responding to these medications. And if things don't go well, you're going to have 24 to 48 hours to live if we don't get this sorted. And like, when you're a 25-year-old guy, 24 at that point, and you get told you got 24 to 48 hours to live, it's everything in your world just crumbles. Everything collapses. And it was in that point where, if I was to say I had an awakening moment, it was that. It was that realization of hearing my mum screaming on the phone, like distraught. Still brings up raw emotions now. And I've spoken about it many times. The fact that she was scared that she wouldn't make it up to Queensland in time to see me if I was to go, that really started to shift me as a whole. And that's when I realized that by this point in time, I'd done so many different nutritional protocols. Like, if we listed them out: vegan, vegetarian, carnivore, keto, paleo, autoimmune paleo, pescatarian, Mediterranean, fasting processes, like all of these over the 2 or 3 years, all of these different methods. So I tried, I'd attempted nutrition, that hadn't worked. I'd attempted, hormone replacement therapy. Like, I was on testosterone and things like that because my body couldn't develop its own because of where it was state-wise. And, I'd seen all of these different specialists and nothing was helping at this point. And that's when, for me, I realized, like, there's something missing. If it's a physical vessel that's struggling so much, and I'm doing all of the physical things right, there's something else. And I was like, that's when I realized this is mental. And that's, I reached out on social media and said, does anyone know about how to get into the Vipassana course? It's a 10-day silent meditation retreats where you meditate for 10 hours a day for 10 days straight. And no eye contact, no communication. You only eat from 6 a.m. to 12, and 2 meals that are vegetarian. You live as a monk for 10 days. And I went and sat a course like 2 weeks later after that hospitalization. And it was risky, me doing that. Really, really risky. Like, that they had to have eyes on me throughout the course to make sure I didn't have something go on. But that was the commitment that I was making to myself. I was like, if I'm, there's something going on here and I'm missing the mark. And that course was when, I had my first real experience of presence, of awareness, of connection, that, I am not this physical body. I am something greater than this. I am a spirit or a soul, or, we are all one, we are all energy. And that's, I guess, when, I'd gone from, I'd been teaching at uni in physiology and the science and all of that, and then going to this other side of it where it was about like spiritual and the experience of the spiritual. I was like, these things can't be refuted. And, at this point in time, I was on a whole lot of heavy medication. I was on cytotoxic radiation therapy, which was, leukemia level medication. I was on infliximab infusions, which is blood infusions every 2 weeks, going in and getting injections. And there was other medications I was on where when I walked into the hospital, they had to put like the skull and crossbones vest on me, because if I went near particular machines, it would set off my medication in my body. And I was just a concoction of medication, and I wasn't getting better. I not once during that period of time got to 100% health, and that was on the heaviest dosages that they could. And I went back in for a follow-up scope probably March 25th, 2020. And by this point, I'd sat my second Vipassana course. So I'd sat two in that, 3-month period. And yeah, the doctors and surgeons called me and they said, like, it's tough for us to let you know, but it seems as though you're a non-responder. Like all of the medication we're giving you is not helping. And, when you're in that environment, all you're being told is that, medication is, you've got this thing, we'll give you these tablets, take these tablets and we'll titrate you off, or take this, or if it gets more serious, have these injections, or whatever it is. And so all I'd been told from the time I'd been in hospital was medication is the only thing that can save you. Without it, you're going to go downhill, and you can't stop the medication, because if you do, your immune system will develop antibodies and then it'll never work again. So I was so damn fearful, because the guys in the white coats had been beating this into my brain. And obviously I'm in these extremely heightened emotional states when they're telling me these things as well, because I'm so unwell. I'm in such a scarcity mindset around my health and my survival. And so when they've told me that, it was really interesting, because they told me that while I was sitting in a car outside of Exalto, actually, where I was running the one of my academies at that point in time. And as soon as I got off the call, I was in agonizing pain. Like it was the most blood I'd ever seen in my life. And it was just the toilet bowl, the toilet seat, everything was just plastered. It was like my body was saying no. And I ended up, I was supposed to continue running these. It was called at the point in time, the Holistic Health Academy. So I was teaching about all of the things I'd been learning around holistic health. And it was a 6-week online program. And I was supposed to continue to run it, but I had to stop because I literally couldn't even, get through. And 3 days later was when I made probably the scariest decision of my life, but also the proudest decision. And that was, like I said, I'm not taking any medication again. I'm done. I'm out. And I remember sitting on the balcony just out here, like 3 meters from where I am right now. And I was crying and calling mum. Like I was so lost. I was so scared. And obviously when they've told you nothing's going to save you except the medication, and now I'm saying I'm going to stop it, it was just so much terror. And just everything that they told me just running through my head. But I had this like feeling inside me, this like that I had to trust, was like, if you're going to get through this, you're going to get through this without the medication, and you will survive, because you're here for something greater than yourself. You're here to share a message and to spread this message. And kind of like, what, I guess these things were reflecting back to me at this point in time. Like when I was year 1 in primary school, I can still as clear as day remember I was walking from my classroom in 1Q to our sports shed. And I had this, it was like a voice. I don't know, you could call it a voice, an entity. Something came to me and said, you are destined to do great things. I was like 6 years old at the time. I didn't know what that meant. This was before I'd been labeled as, as the gifted or whatever it is. And so these things were kind of like flowing back to me at this point in time. And I just had this inner like knowing. And I told my parents, and I told, my girlfriend at the time, I said, I will either die in my bed here at home, or I will survive this without the medication. But I will not be going back to that hospital, because the amount of fear that I feel at this point in time, I feel like is worse for me than the medication. And the next 2 weeks were genuinely, the word would be horrific from a human standpoint. I couldn't get out of my bed. I couldn't move. I couldn't feed myself. I could barely walk. I could barely talk. I couldn't really even walk. I lost like 15 kilos in under 2 weeks. I went from like 74 kilos down to like 52. That's 22 kgs. That was in like a month, which is the lightest I'd been since year 4 in primary school, year 3. And I just had this, again, my doctor, who's my doctor now, my allied health, he's a integrative practitioner. We actually called my dad. At this point in time, I couldn't care for myself, and my girlfriend had had her work on, so she couldn't care for me. This is when the borders were starting to close down. So my mum couldn't get up because my sister was pregnant. She wanted to look after her. My dad was coming up. And my dad was so terrified and so scared that he called my doctor. And on Easter Sunday, my doctor came to my house with his partner. And I didn't know this till 6 months later because Dad wouldn't tell me. But Dad eventually told me that, when they left that day and they went outside, the doctor had said that, like, you need to get this boy to a hospital. Like, he's not going to survive. And obviously Dad couldn't tell me that, but Dad had to wear that. And Dad had to trust me because I'd said, I will not go to that hospital. I won't go back. I will make it through this, or I'll pass here. And the doctor basically said that he if he signed off on seeing me here at home and I passed away, it'd be on his back, so he wouldn't sign off. And the biggest thing was he respected my decision, and that's something that why I love him so much, and we'll thank him for the rest of my life, because he respected my sovereignty over my body. He knew as a medical profession what he felt I needed, but he trusted that I knew myself well enough. And that 2-week period, I literally just contemplated dying every day. That was actually that 2-week period before Dad got up to me was when I was contemplating it. And obviously I continued to contemplate it for probably more around a month, but there was a 2-week period where I was basically all alone. And that's all that was going through my head all day, every day. Like, will I wake up tomorrow? And I was writing letters home to my family each night in case. And it wasn't just, I love you guys. Like, it still sort of gets me now, but because of me wanting to give to the world so much. And that's like my mission and my vision in this life was, I wasn't writing like, I love you guys. I was saying like, I love you. And I know that, you'll be fine without me, but these are the things that I love about you and that make me so happy. And these are the most incredible attributes about these. Please don't lose these things. I ended up connecting with Mitchell Vickridge, who, he used to get upset when I'd say he saved my life, because he's like, I didn't save your life. You did the work, you saved your life. But he was the one that guided me to save my own life. And I haven't touched medication since I went cold turkey on March 29th, 2020. I'm coming up close to 2 years now, and I healed myself from the inside out. I went on really strict nutritional protocols, eliminating so many foods. Like, for a period of like 3 weeks, all I could eat was slivers of raw beef liver, cooked egg yolks, and juiced fruit, and only particular juices, only like apple, carrot, and celery. That's all I was having for like 3 weeks. And then, I could introduce some salmon at like the 4th week mark. And then I needed to go through like liver and kidney protocols and whatnot, because what actually I was exposed to, and I want to speak into this for a moment for everyone listening, is if you know someone with digestive health issues, which is most people in the population, anyone that has celiac, anyone that has, a dairy issue, anyone that has a, IBS, IBD, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, whatever it is, we're so conditioned to go to the symptom. So, when someone's got a sore shoulder, you take them to someone, a doctor or a physio or whatever, and they look at the shoulder.
Yeah.
But very few people in the world ever step back and go, okay, what could be causing this as a root cause? Not the source, but the cause. What is the root of this? And obviously I came to know that in depth from the performance side of things when working with athletes. And it was all about root cause. And so with Mitch, when I started with Mitch, I said, like, I've been doing all of this work on my gut, and I was even in line to have the fecal microbial transplant. So they give the gut microbiome of someone else through feces in capsule form to me. And basically I would then originate their gut health. But there's a whole heap of side effects because it's a very new and emerging field at the moment. And Mitch said the issue with that is even within 12 months to 2 years, you'll revert back to your old baseline. And so to me, I was like, if that's the case, it tells me we're not at the root. And what we ended up, what Mitch ended up enabling me to realize, which is why I'm sharing this right now, is this crucial piece of value to everyone listening. Whoever you know that has a digestive health issue, let them know this, is that if you're treating at the gut and you're doing the cleanse protocols, or you're doing you're taking the supplements, or you're changing your diet, the gut receives messages from the organs. So just like we know when you're exercising, you don't need to go to the toilet because the energy of the body is being put to the muscles. That's why we call it, fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is another. And then there's rest and digest. But what determines whether we rest and digest and recover is not the gut itself. It's your kidneys, and within that, your adrenal glands and your liver, and within that, your gallbladder. So all we did for the first 4 to 5 months was work on getting my kidneys and liver back online. That's all we did. And through this process of implementing that and these nutritional protocols, as well as leaning into a whole heap of breath work, because this is where I got introduced to holotropic breath work. I've been practicing like Wim Hof and stuff like that for 4 or 5 years sporadically before. Got introduced to that, but then also to the healing power that we have over our own body. And to speak into this was, I didn't have a sense of smell for 25 years. I was born without it, or when I was like 3, I smashed my face on the A-frame of a trailer, and they believe I may have severed the olfactory nerve through my nose. But I also have like benign tumors, like polyps in my skull that could have been compressing the olfactory nerve. So I'd never smelled in 25 years. And it was kind of like a joke within our family and whatnot. And a lot at school, like I copped quite a bit of bullying about it at school, because at boarding school, people fart and I couldn't smell it. So they'd come and fart in me and stuff like that. Oh, you're going to get pink eye and all of those things. But when I was going through this journey, and when it's like when you face your greatest fear, you become empowered because you faced it. For me, at this point, like my biggest fear was stopping medication. And I was like, I've done it. I've stopped the medication. So I was feeling empowered. And I was like, if I can save myself from death's door naturally, I can heal my sense of smell. I'm going to create a sense of smell. And so I went to work on that. And I was just doing the practices, the breathwork practices, and the energetic, you call it energetic healing, each day for around 2 to 3 weeks. And around the 3-week mark, I smelled my first thing, and it wasn't pleasant. I was on the toilet. So I was like, whoa, what is this? And then I realized what was happening. I was like, holy crap. And it's just genuinely like, it's just progressed. So, and that's what I mean. Like if someone's not had a sense of smell for 25 years, it's like someone being blind for 25 years, someone being deaf for 25 years. And then they commit to a process and they put the energy and the intention into it, and they can see or they can hear after nothing for 25 years. Like that's, that would be called miraculous healing. And I guess that's the process that I went through, but it was no miracle. It was understanding that we are energy, we are energetic beings. And if we work to that, we can change our energy and as a result, heal the body. Yeah. And so that's what's going on. And I guess for me, it was when I'd lost everything through this health journey, lost, my friends, my colleagues up here, my business, my mission, my vision, my purpose. There's really nothing left to me. And for me, I was like, if I'm going to, do something for the rest of my life that I love, what is that? And, because of the background in training and then nutrition and then gut health and then recovery and sleep and balance and meditation and all of these things, I was like, if there was one thing that I could wake up every single day and know that I couldn't get bored and there was more to learn, what would it be? And it was the subconscious mind. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm committing my life to. And how to enable people to rewire their subconscious mind so that it serves them, it does the work for them, and they don't need to do all the conscious work. Yeah. And so at this point in time, I didn't realize this, but for me, because I was like 50, maybe like 55 kilos at this point in time. So I was still like a skinny stick. I was barely eating, like I was down still in the care of my parents in Victoria. But I was like, if I'm going to recreate my life from where I am, which is the rubble and the crumble, how do I ensure that I actually experience the life that I want to achieve, that I want to experience? Because I've been through so many courses and programs and coaches over the years in personal development, and I invested a lot, that I was still feeling like there was gaps. Like I could fall through the holes in this path. And so what I set out to do was, I'm going to create a system for myself that if I get clear enough on what I want and I make this system, I can't miss, because there's no gaps to fall through. And so what I did for like 3 months was start working on this system, refining it, doing more research. Okay, how can I improve this? And what I ended up realizing was that the deepest part of our subconscious and the deepest part of our human mind is our human identity, which is the who I am. And what I realized was, I'm going to reframe my identity and reset my identity, and I'm going to create this system. And so I set about creating this system, and I did, and I had incredible results for myself. And then I had a couple of people privately reach out to me, and a guy that had been an employee in the mines for a period of time, and we took him from being an employee in the mines to launching 4 businesses, which were all multi-million dollars within like 2.5 months of implementing this. And took a pro athlete that was almost retired, ready to give up at age 20, to being back second in the world within 2.5 months. Had some incredible, you could call them, again, miraculous healings with paraplegics and things like that, where we did no physical work, just working on the subconscious and the identity, and getting, paraplegics in wheelchairs from the point where they don't have use of their legs to the point where they're riding push bikes within 3 months. Like, just, I grasped that everything that I had gone through in my life, going from, the pain and the trauma and the bullying, to creating that ego story of protection and success, from being the science guy to then being the spiritual guy, to nearly losing my life and having the shift, was all happened for me to discover, uncover, create this system. And I truly believe when I say it, that the identity system, which I'm launching on the 28th of March to the public, because I've been implementing it with private clients over the last 18 months-ish, is that the people that I've taken it to so far in the personal development space, coaches and mindset coaches and whatnot already, have literally said to me, like, how do I become an identity coach? Because I can see that this is so far advanced and superior to all of these other systems. Like, you can't miss your mark if you just follow this system. So to me, I truly believe that, in a way, it's like that legacy piece that's what I want to leave for the world, is the identity system, to have identity coaches all around the world. And again, this is, I guess, like the culmination of my story, is for me to get to this point, to have gone through the darkest of the dark times, and to have had that extended period of, I didn't work for like 2.5 years. It was just meditate, breathe, journal, introspection. Like, I was basically living like a monk for those 2 years, because all I was being fed, I didn't need to think about it. I just lay around and meditate, think, become more and more aware. And so that's why I know my story is very different, because I know when some people say, how do you do what you've done? I'm like, you don't want to fucking do what I've done. You don't want to go there. So for me, it's, how can I now, because there's that question, like, do all people need to go through the suffering, the pain, and the darkness to get to the light? Do all people need to have that punch in the face to have that, oh, I need to change? It's that moment where someone's been unhealthy their whole life, they lose a loved one to a heart attack, and then they go, oh, we should change. Or, they have that cancer scare, and then they start to change things. It's like, how do we get people to create the life that they want, or that they're supposed to be here to experience, without needing to go through the struggle, the pain? And that's my mission now, is the identity system. And that the logo for the identity system is the phoenix, because it's being reborn, being reborn from the ground up, by consciously choosing to, not having to go to the pain to first get there. And so that's where I'm at.
That's awesome, dude. Man, we've been going for about an hour. You do love to talk, don't you? So everyone listening, take a deep breath, get a drink. The reason I let you just talk there is because I wanted you to share your story. I wanted you to get everything out, because I know the listeners would get so much from that. And this podcast is about, mental health, but it's not always about the negative kind of stuff, or depression, anxiety and stuff. It's how we prevent it as well. And this is why I wanted to get you on, because you're wealth of knowledge around physical, mental health, breath work, all that kind of stuff. because once we start to implement that stuff, gut health, all that, everything, it's going to prevent us going down a path of anxiety, depression, suicide, because we are creating the lives that we want, and we are happy and we are healthy in our own skin. And we do know our identity, because that was a big thing. Like, I could, throughout your story there, I could relate to a lot of it. Now, I wasn't labeled gifted or anything, but I always felt different. Like, I'd never quite fit in. And when you mentioned like you fit in when you're motocross and riding bikes and stuff, that was like me on the footy field. Like, that was my element. Like, I fit in on the field, but like at school and stuff, like I had friends, but I was just different, you know? And I had this weird feeling inside me, and I would always get anxiety and stuff, which at the time I didn't know was anxiety, but now I do. And yeah, it's a lot of people go through that. And I always knew I wanted to make change in this world. I wanted to have impact in this world, but I never quite knew how. And I love that from a young age yourself, like you knew to look at successful people and you're like, what are they doing? I want to go down that path and implement their habits and stuff, because that is so important to be doing at such a young age. Like, I'm a dad to a daughter now. And like, for me, I'm going to be driving in her head, like, look at what successful people do. Like, and for myself, lead by example as well, because so many kids don't have role models, and they go down dark paths because they're lost. They don't know what to do with life because there's no one to look up to. And if they're listening to this podcast or they're following people on social media, and just look at what successful people are doing, because it is going to put you on a path. And what Todd did, oh, I love that when you mentioned you're calling that coach like for like 30 days straight, and he finally answered. There's a message in that, and it goes, it's have initiative, be persistent, because you will achieve what you set out to achieve. Now, don't do what Todd did and work yourself into a hospital bed.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story is, if you want something, go after it. So there's so many little gems throughout that story that you shared. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, hey, my pleasure, brother. And I've really had to sit with it. I've been really blessed and fortunate that I guess my story has landed with a lot of people. So I've been fortunate to be on, a bunch of podcasts, a lot of podcasts. And at first I was really hesitant to share my story because, for yourself, it becomes repetitive. But I kept realizing that they're completely different audiences, and the impact of the story was landing. And it's kind of like, to me, I was like relating to Joe Dispenza. And had Dr. Joe Dispenza, is the quantum healing kind of expert of the world. He shares the same thing almost every single time on each podcast, but it's because it's to a different audience, and that's what needs to be heard. So I know that for this point in time in my life, my story, what I've been through is my message, because what it enabled me to realize, and this is what you've just brought up, is that I was so driven by a growth mindset for so many years, but I didn't have the mindfulness to know what was driving me or why I was going where I was going. So it was like me being blindfolded and just foot to the floor in a car, just going wide open. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going flat out. And that's what I was doing. And what it brought me to realize was one thing that I share with every single person I come into contact with when they ask me, what's the most valuable thing you've learned? I said, mindset is brilliant, but it is always second to mindfulness. So mindfulness, being presence, being awareness, is the foundation. It is the structure. Then the mindset is the ladder to climb. If you don't have the foundation and structure, the ladder will always fall over. You can be climbing the ladder as fast as you want, but if that ladder's laying down flat on the ground, you're not going up anywhere. And that's, for a lot of us, that's what we're doing. We're so like, we hear the Gary V's and the Eric Thomas and the Les Brown and the hustle harder, do the thing, sell the stuff, whatever it is. And we're so driven on this path of external achievement that we think is right for us. But we don't really take that time to sit back and go, what do I want as a feeling? Because that's the biggest thing is, let's say, for example, we have the goal of, it's having the podcast to 1 million people. per episode. Yeah,
That's the goal, bro. That's the goal.
Yeah, there we go. That's the external goal and the external achievement. And when you, again, like I had a lot of time to go introspective, and what I realized was that for all humans, the reason we have an external goal is for the feeling when we get there. It's the feeling. It's not the actual achievement, because the number on the screen doesn't actually give you anything physically, but it's the, oh yes, it's the feeling, the internal feeling, not the external experience. And most people are driven by the external achievement. They want the new car, or they want that pay rise, or they want to make X amount of money in their company, or they want to achieve this sporting competition goal. And when you really dig backwards, and I've obviously done this a lot with my athletes and my clients because I understand this now, and it always comes back to the same thing. It's the feeling they get. And it's typically a feeling of being good enough, or feeling like, you know, that they're worthy, or it's that feeling of love, or it's always the feeling. It might be joy, or it might be feeling free. And we can't create that feeling if we're always based on the external. And if we do, we only have it for a short period. It's like, you know, you get that number on the podcast, boom, you have that like 3 days of celebration after working for 2 years to get there. You have 2 days of celebration. Wow. And then it's like, okay, the next thing. And then that feeling of joy, of fulfillment, of achievement, of completion, of success is gone, because you're now focused on the next external thing. And that's the same thing for most people. That's why we hear of billionaires that are depressed, that are taking their lives. That's why we also know of people, you know, the monks that have nothing. They have 3 robes and a begging bowl to their name in material items, and they're the happiest people on earth. And again, because of the meditation. And this is where, you know, the story is quite unique. I got to learn from these monks and these masters, and got to sort of, I guess, analyze them and understand, why are they so happy and fulfilled when they have, you know, materially, externally, nothing. What I realized was that they learned to cultivate the feeling that they were seeking. And so for me, that's a part of the identity system. Is if I worked my ass off all those years to achieve those external things, the teaching at the uni, or the training the world champions, or the Olympians, or, you know, having the business doing this, whatever it was, when I dug backwards, I realized it was a feeling of protection, so that I wouldn't feel weak, vulnerable, or inadequate, which were the internal dialogue, the story in my head about me if I wasn't achieving. So it was from a place of lack. But what was the feeling that I wanted to create? Was fulfillment, was presence, was joy. And so for me, a biggest part of the identity system is recreating your identity, who you are at the core of your being, from a place of, how can I create these feelings, live this feeling without the external achievement? Because when we have that, we have what we deep down truly in our core want, and we get to live that every day. The external achievement is a bonus. Because obviously, as an example, Tony Robbins. Tony says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, which is to say, if we term success as material success, money, as an example, fulfillment being internal achievement. So if we have the money without the fulfillment or the happiness, we've got nothing. And that's why we have the billionaires and the millionaires taking their life. And the perfect example of that is someone like it's slipped my mind right now. He was Mrs. Doubtfire, Flubber.
Oh, I think I know what you mean. Oh.
Yeah. Robin
Williams.
Yeah, that's the one. Robin Williams. And so that's an example. And so for me, I was like, okay, let's reverse engineer this. If success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, how do we create fulfillment without success? Because then in that way, that's the ultimate success. That's the ultimate win. And so what I've done in my life is create this system where I live in fulfillment every single day, regardless of what I'm going through. And that's what got me through my health journey. Because even when I was in such a challenging time, people were still like, how are you so positive? Like, how are you so, lighthearted and caring and all of these things? And it was because of that. I'd gone, okay, How do I recreate and how do I manifest or create that feeling within myself without any external achievement? And so now I can be laying on the balcony all day for 3 days, do nothing, and feel just as fulfilled as if I'd just achieved my biggest goal. Because it's not the goal that creates a feeling anymore, it's me. And that's the gift that I want to be able to share with the world, because that's what we all seek. We want the love in our life because of what it brings us as a feeling. We want the new car because of the feeling we get when we hit the throttle and take off. Or that amount of money because of the feeling it gives us when we purchase that thing or when we feel that security. So yeah, it's the mindfulness needs to come first to be able to step back and go, what do I really want? Like if I only had 2 more days to live and I couldn't achieve anything, what would I want to feel? And then you can start to design your life from there.
Take that in. That is, that's powerful. And that's actually just hit me because I just thought about it. I was like, fuck, what do I want? Because I'll be honest, I've been a bit overwhelmed lately. Like I set massive goals for myself and that is healthy until it takes control. And I've been falling in the trap of, obviously I want to get more listeners and grow my audience and, start getting an income from what I'm doing. And it's like, fuck, how do I do all this? And I was getting this anxiety and this overwhelm because like eventually I want to leave my job as well, which is a massive risk in itself. And I got a baby. There's so much stuff happening in my life. And I was like, wow, this is a massive challenge. But what do I really want? What makes me happy? And when you just said that, the first thing that came to my mind was like being out in the bush, like exploring, like going on adventures. Like that is my true happiness. When I can just be a big kid, be out there having fun, going to new waterfalls, look out, stuff like that. That's what truly makes me happy. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately. And it's like, have I been doing that as much in my life? I haven't. I've been caught up in working on the podcast, editing. Like there's so much stuff that goes into it, which is fine. But I haven't been filling my own cup up. I haven't been getting my own fulfillment because if I'm not fulfilled, how am I meant to turn up as my best me in the podcast realm, as a parent, as a partner, all that kind of stuff? So that is very powerful, Toddy. And that's really hit me, eh?
Thank you, brother. And I invite you and those listening to sit with that afterwards, to just take 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just once this podcast ends on your phone, just go, I'm going to write for 5 minutes and just go, what is the feelings? What are the things I love to do? But see, I still urge people to move away from what I want to do. So let's say it is adventuring, that's being out in the waterfall, so on and so forth. That's the doingness. The doingness is what creates the feeling. So if you said
feeling of freedom, that's what it makes me feel.
So it's the feeling of freedom. Yeah. So it's coming back to the feeling. Because if you were locked in a jail for the rest of your life, as Gandhi was in jail for 6 years of his life, he was standing for peaceful protests, and he couldn't go out and do the thing that he was supposed to do. But he created freedom because he was free within, because he knew he was doing what he was supposed to do. And as you were just saying about, feeling overwhelmed, one thing I want everyone to know is we're all human and we all have an ego. We all get triggered. We all make mistakes. We all get overwhelmed. We all get stressed. Just yesterday afternoon, I wrapped my hand up in 2 t-shirts and punched the crap out of a wall for like 3 minutes because I had some energy, some rage coming up from within my body. That was something going on from an external experience. And I was present to it, but I was like, I can already tell this is in me, so I've got to let it out. Back in the day, like this is a part of what the health challenge was. I didn't know how to consciously express, and I'd suppress. If I'm getting angry, don't show it, don't feel it. People can't see that. But then that energy gets stored in our body, which is why when you watch animals, let's say for example, like a gazelle or something like that in the wild, they get chased by a lion or a tiger. They run. If they get to safety, they look, make sure they're safe. Then what they do is they jump up and down on the spot for 5 to 10 seconds, and then they plonk. Okay, that's a gazelle, or, you know, an antelope, something like that. Another example, ducks. 2 ducks are in a pond. They get into a quarrel. They get into a fight. They fly off in their opposite directions. They sit down. Then you'll see them for 5 to 7 seconds. They flap their wings like crazy. And then
they're shaking off that adrenaline.
Exactly. It's the excess energy that is within our body. And we as humans have been conditioned to not do that. And so I now know that when I feel that, I need to let that out consciously. So now, back in the day, I just like lose my shit and yell and scream. You know, someone upsets me. You know how like we hold it in, and then someone does one thing and they tip us, and then we're like, "Screw you, you da 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 da." You know, when people like in traffic and they lose their lid. That's not because of what that person did. It's because of what's been building up. So, you know, for me, I have that conscious awareness to now go, okay, I'm going to go scream into my pillow or punch my pillow, or, you know, wrap my hand up and punch something, rather than, you know, if I was to punch a wall and be bleeding everywhere or whatever. Like, I allow it out in a way that I'm consciously aware of what I'm doing. And that side of it is to know that none of us are perfect. And, you know, one of the things that I've become very aware of is when someone's listening to a podcast, you're kind of putting them on like the guest or the expert pedestal. And I want people to know that I stuff up more than most people. And I'm living proof of that. Like, very few people nearly lose their life twice because they're too stupid to listen to the people around them saying, you need to rest more, kid. Like, and with that, it's taking the time to slow down. When I say slow down, it doesn't mean, because I used to think slow down and balance was like I do nothing. But it's to just have the time to be mindful of what I actually want to feel. And what am I doing right now to get that? And is there something that I could do that's more efficient or serves me more to experience that feeling? So, as you were saying before, like your feeling of freedom is that big one. For me, it's service. My biggest thing is serving people. That fulfillment of seeing someone's life transform is my high on this planet, in this physical body. And so for me, I know if that's the feeling I want to create for me, seeing a transformation because someone's put themselves first and loved themselves. And I go, okay, well then if I put myself first and do my love for myself, then I get to experience that fulfillment. So that's why I'm so imperatively integral to my routines, my morning and my evening routines, which are my self-love time, which is around 3 hours each day, where it's solely for me. Because when I do that, I'm living in that feeling. And then that carries on into the rest of my day. Because I've taken the time to go, what is the feeling that I really want to live from? And that's not to say, like I said yesterday, there was that period of about an hour where I was like wit's end, so upset, you know, family challenges going on for my family down south, and just that feeling of what that meant to me, knowing that they're in pain, just brought up like that protector in me, like that warrior energy. And we all have those days, we all have those struggles. But what I welcome you to do is, when that struggle comes up, when that challenge comes up, that feeling of overwhelm, it's to be able to come back to the breath, observe your breathing as you're breathing in and out, make it through the nose, and then go, what is actually happening here? Is what I'm being stressed about right now happening in this very present moment, or is it a story about the future or the past? Because almost always it's that. When you're fully present, even when you're laying there with a broken bone, or for me, when I was in like a corpse kind of a state, I was in constant pain, but I was present to it. So I wasn't suffering mentally, because I wasn't thinking about, oh, how bad this could be in the future or what I had in the past. I was just there. And so there might be a physical pain, but there's no mental suffering. And most of the human condition is mental suffering. I haven't got that thing yet. I haven't made that amount of money. I haven't got that number of people listening yet. I haven't got this thing. I haven't done this. I haven't got enough time for this. I haven't done these things yet. It's like, I'm just here, right here and right now. Can I actually change those 50 things that are freaking me out or overwhelming me? No. Okay. What can I do right now? And when you have that moment, again, mindfulness, then mindset.
Yeah.
Easy example, and the way to bring this home in that way to rein it in is, if I said to you, you're in Blue Mountains at the moment. If I said to you, I want you to get to Rockhampton in Queensland, and I just said, go. And you just got in the car and you just, pedal to the metal flat out. You don't know where you're going, but you're just going. You end up in like WA. I could have been going, you could have been doing 110, speeding everywhere, and I'm doing 30, but I've got my map and my mindfulness, the tortoise and the hare kind of thing, and I get there. So for me, it's mindfulness is always going to be that basis. But if I could have said to you, here's the map, now go, you're going to smoke me. But it's just having that bit of time to investigate, what is it that I actually want to feel? What is it that I actually want to experience? Setting that out from a place of feeling and then going forward from there. And that's when you get to create a life by design.
Yeah, that's powerful. And the key is, mindfulness and being self-aware. For me yesterday, I was pretty damn overwhelmed. I was tired and I knew I just had to get out of the house. I went straight, I went for a run actually, and I just felt so sluggish on my run. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to this lookout. I'm going to do some breath work. And after it, man, I felt on top of the world. Like I had all this energy. And I think that just comes back to that feeling of freedom, feeling present, which then put me on a whole different energy level. So yeah, the breath is very important. And, speaking on my feeling, for example, of freedom, a lot of people may not be able to go on adventures or whatever the case may be. They may be stuck in a job they hate, but they can do breath work. They can take 10, 20 minutes out of their day to do that breath work, to have that feeling of freedom, which is going to set them up for the rest of the day.
100%. Absolutely. And, my routines, my morning routine's about 2 hours. So whatever I do before I start anything in my day, I am sure I'm up for 2 hours to do my routine. And that's for me, because obviously I've been in a pretty potent journey. So I know that that's the level of, investment I need to give myself at this point. And that, my evening routine's about half an hour. But the reason that this is so important is because it also sets the foundation and that level of how much we're giving to ourselves. And, a key part of my morning routine is my breath work. And to share on that for a moment, to give, the value and the key to go and implement, to apply for you listening, is go to YouTube, type in C2BC daily, click play and join in. It's, if you look them up on Instagram, Cool to Be Conscious, all words except the word 2 is a number, Cool to Be Conscious. They are two young men, Rue and Rye, and I'm so blessed and grateful to have those boys in my life and for us to have connected. I use a Cool to Be Conscious daily. It's 3 minutes. 3 minutes max. 22 breaths, 30-second hold, 22 breaths, max hold, 4 in through the nose, 8 out through the mouth, and that's it. But I use that as like a reset every time I'm feeling rough.
Is that what you did before
stressed.
this podcast?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when, I sent you a message and said, hey, had a huge morning, just going to recenter. It's exactly what I was doing. I took those few minutes to just go and do the daily. I come out of it, because what happens is when you, and to give explanation to this on the breath work side of it, if you're new to breath work, start with the Cool to Be Conscious daily, because it's so short, it's so efficient, but the feeling is so obvious that the 22 conscious connected breaths bring up this change in our oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. And so it starts to quieten down the ego, the prefrontal cortex, the top of the mind. And when we go into that first breath hold, we do it on an exhale. So our body's in that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest. And we're just in pure silence, calmness for 30 seconds. And then we go into 30 more conscious connected breaths. I should say 22 more. Then have another hold. And the same thing, it furthers that state. And what happens is, as you're breathing and you're being conscious that you're breathing, you're going, for me, that was always the doer. I used to struggle with meditation because I'd set a 10-minute meditation. I'd be 6 minutes in and I'm like, fuck, I'm not feeling good enough yet. This sucks. What a waste. I'm done. I'm out. I'd get up and walk off and I'd be more frustrated because I had an attachment to feeling better, not realizing at that point in my life that meditation is not about the outcome. It's about, the process and being in it. But the breath work brings you into the process. And while you're breathing, you're aware that, hey, I could be doing all of those other things. But right now, I'm just sitting here and breathing. And it just calms your system down because it starts to let go of the need to do all of the other things. It just slows you down. And from that, you start to get clarity. And then when you go into the breath hold, you just realize none of this really matters. Like this physical body that I'm in, it's impermanent. One day it's going to, break down just like the world, just like everything around us. And it puts things back in perspective. And you have that shift of, okay, I'm good. What do I need to do now? And so that's one of the biggest tools I could welcome people to lean into because it is so short and efficient. From there, you can obviously lean into doing Wim Hof. You type that in on YouTube. The first 11-minute ones are awesome. Once people have started down that journey, you can lean into holotropic breath work, which is the conscious connected breathing, but typically like 45 minutes to 3 hours, big, deep ones. That's one of the keys that, healed my body innately. And there's all different variations of that. But to speak in that spirit part of it for a moment, when you really go into, the biblical scriptures and really most of the religious scriptures, whether that be Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and even agnostics, people that don't believe in a religion, but they're spiritual, almost all of the teachings come back to the breath, come back to being present. And for me, I look at the teachers and the sages and the masters of the millennia, not just the last 3 years. Why has this message been carried on and passed on and held and protected for so long in all the different religions, not just speaking into one, but all of them? And, for that, I go, there's a reason. So I'm going to follow that and I'm going to experience it for myself. Because one of the biggest things for me is just like I just said, do the Cool to Be Conscious daily. Don't do it because I said to do it. Don't trust anything I say. Don't trust anything I say at all, ever. Only trust what you experience for yourself. Don't trust the news. Don't trust your friends. Don't trust your family. Like in that way of experience something for yourself, and then what the truth for yourself. And that's where you can make your experience and your judgments from. That's also a massive thing around, society, because we're so quick to write people off before we've met them. And when we do this, it's like, you actually get to make your own informed decisions through experience. So go on, after this, go and experience, test what it's like to go and journal for 5 minutes after this on what do I want to feel. And if it feels good or it gives you some clarity, it's good. If you go and do the daily and you feel better, it's good. And if it doesn't, Todd sucks.
On that though, like obviously you said people go try it out. But sometimes on the first 1 to 2 goes, they may not get the hang of it. Should they continue doing it though?
Yeah, for sure. It's breath work is almost completely, the experience that you have in breath work is almost completely and directly correlated to the level to which your ego is willing to surrender, which is to say, if you don't want to you want to be in control of everything, a lot of the time you can't have those incredible experiences, mystic experiences or out of body experiences or, visions and people coming to you because you're so attached to the physical vessel, to the ego, to the body. And they say that, the power of meditation and breath work is that it expands your consciousness to the point where when we have out of body experiences, which to me is a real experience because most of us being in our body, as I learned from the near-death experience, was that this body is not who I am, not in any way, shape or form. I'm inhabiting, I'm kind of in this, just like we get into a car and out of a car. That's the same thing with this body in this life.
It's just a vessel.
Exactly. And when we have, when we go into breath work and we allow ourselves to surrender, it's kind of like, what's holding us in this physical. If we surrender and let go and go, whatever's supposed to come up will come up. This will be cool to just experience. We let go of the shackles. So consciousness, our spirit, our soul, whatever we want to call it, our energy can expand. And that's when we have those, you could call them fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional experiences. And I've experienced a lot of them myself. And I've also led a lot of people through breath work that have had them. And they're not explainable in logical terms. But once you've experienced it, without a doubt, without a fact, just as clear it is as me looking at my computer screen right now at you, it's the same thing. Yeah. So 100%. If you do the daily and you're like, oh, that was all right, go and do a WIM, test that. Then, type in, another really good one is, give me one moment. So Breathwork Online.
Yeah.
You can actually do a free trial with them for like a week. They do like hour-long breathes, which is pretty deep and full on. But they're epic. They're incredible. And the same thing with Alchemy of Breath. They hold every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is a global. They do what they call Breathe the World, and you get guided through by breathwork practitioners, facilitators, and get to breathe with people all around the world for like an hour and 15 minutes. And that's free. You just subscribe and they send you the link every week. So that's awesome. A way that you can start to journey down that path. Yeah.
Yeah. Because one I'm doing at the moment, it's called Breathwork Beats. And it's these little short 10-minute ones. And it's a mixture of different like breathing techniques. So it's like breath of fire, alkaline breathing, power breathing, and then Wim Hof breathing within like little sessions, little rounds. And yeah, man, it feels good. My favorite, like I love the breath holds, they make me feel so weird but good,
Yeah. It's really interesting, that whole, that experience. Like, I guess the question, for me, for you right now would be like, what is it that, I guess you feel or experience when you're in that breath hold state?
A sense of clarity.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's nearly like an out of body experience, as you mentioned before, but I haven't quite fully got there yet, but it's just like that weird feeling of just presence and clarity. And it's probably one of the best feelings. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Exactly. And that's why it's, why when you speak with the monks and the masters that have, mastered that part of their life, the feeling of fulfillment, the feeling of, happiness, joy, peace, they breathe and they meditate every single day because it brings calm to the mind. And we think that we're in our body, but almost all the time we're in our head, we're in our mind. That's the thing running the show. When we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed, when we're upset, when we're emotional, it's not the body, it's the mind telling the story. And through breathwork and meditation, we quiet the mind and we get clarity, we get calm. And, to speak into at least a case study, I'm the most calm, the most centered, the most present I've ever been in my life at this point in time. And I've also achieved more than I've ever achieved in my entire life in the last 12 months, because I haven't gone from mindset. I've gone mindfulness first and then the doing afterwards. And the things just flow because you've got clarity on when something pops up, an opportunity, or, that the next step, that T intersection, what to do. So it's not, I used to write pros and cons lists for everything. The do or do nots, the positive, negative. I don't touch those anymore because it's a feeling. And I know that feeling because when you become mindful, this thing up top, the head, the brain, the mind, the ego quiets down. And the thing that has what we really want to feel, because remember, the head's thinking, the heart is feeling. If it's all about what we want to feel, when we come back to the, to the feeling, to the heart, the answer is always there. And so you get guided. You don't have to search for it. The answer's already inside. That's another one of the teachings in the, the biblical scriptures in all of the, the teachers and sages. They say, like, paraphrase here, like, God is within us all. we are the maker of our own universe, so on and so forth. All of these paraphrased statements that they speak of, it is because we have the answers inside of us. They're all inside of us.
Yeah.
So,
and you mentioned obviously going with your heart, but a lot of people say, go with their gut feeling. What's your kind of take on that? Because isn't the gut like your second, like it's connected to your brain kind of thing?
yes, I love this. So I speak into this every day as a part of my identity system. So I have a question, and that's because I've got 23 questions that I ask myself every day, and that confirms who I am and why I am that way. And I have for efficiency in coaching, what we can actually do is name parts of ourself, our personality. So my head is called Todd. So my ego is Todd. My heart is Toddy. My gut is Toddy boy. So I can, and then the way I go through situations now is, how I was saying about I don't do pros and cons. I can quiet myself down, just breathe for a minute, and then go. It's kind of like knights at the round table. I go, hey, let's all come together. Okay, what's showing up? And then, it's crazy because they've got their own voices, sort of thing. Like, as you can, your head has voices. We all know that, but you can feel. And so the way I explain it is my head can analyze complex situations and egos. So the good thing about having an ego is that I can tell and analyze someone else's ego because I know what it's like to be in it. So I can analyze those. Toddy, my heart, he feels the truth. Because when we go deeper and further into this, when we really get to the core that we're all energy, when you're really in that state of expanded consciousness, whether that be through breath work, deep states of meditation in samadhi, or if it's, people that have been with plant medicine journeys and things like that, the answer is almost always with everyone I've spoken to and what I've experienced is like you get to a state where it's just like you can't even explain it. It's just like unconditional love for everything, and you are nothing. And so if we say the truth, when we're in that ultimate expanded consciousness is like love, and the love comes from the heart, and the heart has the truth, the ultimate truth. And so I allow it to guide me in that sense. And then the gut is the intuition. So Toddy boy, or my gut, he tells me whether it's the right investment of time or energy with the right people or path. So I use him to go, ooh, do I get a funky feeling about this? Does my gut feel a bit off? Oh, okay, yep, okay, I need to do this other thing. And then, you can kind of come together, but my gut will bring me answers as well. But what you can do, and you can practice this, develop this, is be able to tap into all three. It's just a little bit of, if you type into YouTube, like inner child, reparenting, there'll be videos on there, and you can actually get to know parts of yourself. And you can develop relationships. It does take a bit of work and a bit of coaching, but man, once you've got it, it's like a superpower. So yeah, and as you're saying, the gut is a second brain. But again, the brain is not as, powerful as the heart. We know that in terms of we are all if we talk about the science, we are, as energy, we're all electromagnetic frequency. North pole and the south pole of the earth is electromagnetic frequency. Our body emits an electromagnetic frequency, as does Wi-Fi and this Bluetooth and all of those things. The thoughts and the brain, the nervous system is electric, of the electro part, and magnetic is the heart. So the Heart Math Institute, I think it was Newcastle University, did research on the magnetic field power of the heart versus the brain. The heart is 5,000 times greater in magnetic power, feeling, than the thinking or the brain. So when we talk about manifestation, most people sit and they're like, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, I want $1 million. They're in their head, and they're like, why is this thing not working? Because they're sending the signal out, the thought, the electric frequency, the magnetism, the magnetic energy is not being drawn back. So to truly manifest, we need to go into the heart. It needs to be felt. So there's a whole other conversation around that, but that's a huge aspect.
Yeah. So I want to quickly touch on the, if you're thinking about $1 million,
Yep.
if you want to attract it, if you want to manifest it,
Mhm.
is it basically like going to your heart and feeling like what does it feel like to have $1 million? Is that what you're kind of getting at? Like the feeling it gives you if you got that money?
Yeah. So it's number one, yes, going into the feeling. Number two, actually living the feeling. So, same thing, a part of my morning routine every day is embodying what I call embodying success, which is to say embodying my ultimate life. So I don't just think about it. I go through and I feel it viscerally in my body. So my eyes are closed. I'm in a meditative state, or I've just done breath work and I'm going through. And let's say, for example, like, I've got performance outcomes, 200 kilo deadlift, 160 kg squat, 110 bench, so on and so forth. Well, let's say, for example, one of them is the 80 kilo snatch, the Olympic weightlifting move. And for me, I know that every single morning when I go through it, I'm so in it that it's like, what I'd also use as a tool here is you don't want to be feeling it as though you are in it. You want to be able to observe it as like you're observing yourself doing it. So if like I was at the gym, I'm watching me hit the 80 kilos. So we actually want to be outside of the physical self.
Third person kind of thing.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza runs people through it in the way of like, he says, you want to get outside of your body, like feel of the space outside of your shoulder, feel the space above your head, because again, that expands our awareness. And in that, in that energetic field, we're going beyond kind of like linear time and space in that way. So yeah, when we want to manifest, it's the feeling of it already being done. So for me, like I'll be so in it that I'll be sitting there and I'll actually, like, my back will straighten, my arms will sort of move out a bit to my side. And as I go to do the drive, the second pull in the snatch, for example, my butt kind of like glute bridges off the ground as I'm sitting in like a cross-legged position because I'm so in it and I feel it through my body. And it's the same thing when I'm, let's say, for example, if it's embodying the number of clients that I'm serving. Like for me, the vision and the mission for this year is impacting 200 lives through the shift, which is tier 1, part 1 of the identity system. 150 lives through the awakening, which is part 2 of the identity system. And then the final part, which is the actual identity system, the ascension, is 100 lives. So I go through and each morning I'm feeling what it's like to be on there, leading this, coaching this, seeing and feeling, experiencing the transformations. So I'm not just seeing it in my head, I'm feeling it through my body and having that feeling of gratitude. And when you're in that point where you've got tears running down your face or you've got that smile beaming across, that's when you know you're in the money spot. That's when you know you've hit the mark, because it's feeling in your body. And our subconscious, number one, is rewired most efficiently, most effectively by our emotion, not by repetition. So you can sit there and do the repetition of visualizing money or whatever it is, all you want from your head, but your subconscious, which is that magnetic part linked in, doesn't bring it back if it's not felt from within. And so that feeling is so powerful for people to be able to experience 100%. And that's when you'll see things start to change. Like I've said, for me, the clients, the incredible private clients that have come into my life, the community that I started here on the Sunshine Coast, the collaboration with Cool to Be Conscious, creating the ripple effect, creating the partnership with Dr. Espen. All of these things have just happened, like click of the finger, like, hey, this thing would be epic. Yeah, let's do that. It hasn't been forced. It hasn't been the old contact him every day for 28 days. It's just been like, these things just are flowing. Why is that? And I can't say in the present moment of the magic, because I can't see it in front of me. But to me, I know that it's a manifestation because I feel it. And these things are just boom, 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 just clicking off. And that's the identity system doing its work for me. These people are showing up to me because that's where I'm living at, where I'm vibrating at, the frequency I'm at. And once you experience it, you know that there's not really another way that can, that could beat it. At least in this life that I've experienced so far, and all of the people that I've learned from. That's for sure.
Yeah. And energy is so powerful. Like, it's so true when they say the energy you put out is what you receive. So like coming back to the $1 million thing, if you're thinking $1 million, but you're putting out fucking negative vibes every day, you're not going to get $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I'll give something as an example here. And this came from my mentor, Dr. Espen. pardon me, he has $100 notes, on his bathroom sink, on his mirror, in his office. And he goes through and expresses gratitude every morning. I've done the same thing on my bathroom mirror, in a photo frame, or out on our living room desk. And right here behind my computer screen, I have $100 notes. And the reason for that is because a part of my gratitude practice in the morning is I go through and I express the gratitude for the mentors that have taught me about financial abundance, the mentors that embody financial freedom, and how money flows to me every single day, and that I'm grateful for that. Like, a big reframe for me around money was that money is my dear friend, because when we really go into the mental and emotional stories, we have stories around money that we don't even know. It's the main reason that most people are locked in debt. Most people are locked in their 9 to 5 doing what they don't want to do because they got to pay the bills, because they haven't taken the mindfulness to reframe their mindset around money. And that's been a massive thing for me. It's going, I'd realized that I was feeling so fulfilled in all of these areas, but I was like, finance has been one that's always eluded me at the level that I wanted to be, in terms of like global level. And so I was like, I've got some work to do. And that's where I started to do that work, and being able to, come from that feeling. And for me, it was rewiring, realizing that for me, I had aligned money with greed, because when I was and being a bad person, when I was a kid growing up in Hay, my family were, you would say wealthy for that country town, and they've done well. And obviously, me being bullied, a part of the bullying was like, oh, you're a rich kid, you got this, you race motorbikes, so on and so forth, you got a nice house. So I linked money with pain. I don't want to have money, because if I've got money, I'm going to get picked on for having money. Because these other kids, obviously I didn't know at the time, but that was their insecurity. They didn't have money. They wanted what I would have, so they would project. I didn't have that awareness, and that's obviously become ingrained in my subconscious. And so when I became aware that, to me, having money was linked with pain, and that if I had money, I was a bad person, I realized why I could never accumulate the wealth that I wanted to accumulate. So I've reframed my story. Money is my dear friend. Money flows to me every single day. It's like, let's go party. Like, let's hang out. Let's chill. Come on. So it sounds so funky, but we spoke about this on the Technician podcast a while ago with Trav and Rip. And that was about the reframe of money, and how our money story is linked around our self-worth. And when we realize that, for the most part, most of us, our first experience with money has been a scarcity experience, an emotional experience of not enough or lack, we know then why so many people are struggling. And that's something I've been really mindful of with, my little man in my life, Kaya, is speaking into abundance and wealth. And if there was ever an experience where, let's say, the people around him didn't have the money, we wouldn't speak about there's not enough, we can't get that thing. I'm really, really mindful to go, it's not something we want to invest in right now, but we will soon. Because then it's kind of like, we could, but we're just not going to, because, children are so quickly wired, and we don't even realize what some kids hold on to. Like, you'd know it, and we all know it. As a kid, our parent says something that they don't remember at all, but it was like, it hits us like a truck, and we remember it for the rest of our life. And, that experience and knowing how that's impacted me brings this level of awareness to, being around children, and always being so mindful of what we're planting into their minds in that way. And that, again, how do we do that? Be with the breath. If they're reacting or something's going on, come back. Okay. What needs are not being met? Because as kids, the reason we act out, the reason we throw tantrums or misbehave isn't because we want to be a little annoying human or we want to frustrate people. It's because our human need is not being met. There is something that is not being met, hence their behavior to get that thing. They're screaming in the shops because they want the thing. They're rolling around on the ground because they want attention. They're going and doing the bad thing so that they'll get in trouble from their dad, because then at least they get some attention from their dad. It's that process. And so when we can become aware that children's behavior is always because the need isn't being met, we can just ask the question. And it's so crazy to see when this happens, because obviously, like, this is something I've been practicing. And I'll ask the question, hey, little man, like, what do you need right now? What's going on? And then about, no, nothing. I don't want anything. I'm like, hey, come on, I got you. And they're like, oh, I wanted to do this. It's like, okay, let's do this. Or how can we do this at a time soon? And then their needs met and it's gone. It's not an argument and there's not all that discipline. It is phenomenal how children can change in their response when we're just mindful of how we interact with them.
Yeah.
And this actually came from a client of mine for all the parents listening right now. Dan was the man I was speaking about that, you know, professional motocross racer, had been paraplegic, and we had some incredible quantum healing. He was talking to me about his partner and how his beautiful partner, Amy, parents. And this rocked me to my core, because I was like, that is so simple, but why do we not do this? So when their little boy would say, you know, I hate you, Mom. I hate you. She'd respond with, I love you so much. You know, and say, you know, his name. I love you so much. And he wouldn't get the fire that he wants. He kind of get the water thrown on the fire. And he just like almost immediately just like stop, because he doesn't have, you know, what the kids are wanting is a backboard to bounce off. When there's no backboard, they're like, oh, okay. I love you too, Mom. Like, it's just like, what? So that's something that I've been mindfully practicing recently. And again, like to speak to this, we've been talking this whole podcast about all of these things that we can change and implement and embody for the incredible transformation in our life. Where does it all start though, team? Where does it all start though, fam? From that moment of awareness, of mindfulness, of that moment to take a breath. If we are all one, if we're all one energy, we're all the same. And what I do to you is what is actually being done to me. And how can I show up right now? And it all comes back to that point of mindfulness.
That's powerful. Take that in. Man, this has been an awesome podcast. We've spoken about so much stuff. I want to quickly touch on how does someone create self-worth internally? Because we've all been through it, where we feel like we don't belong or we're not worth anything. How do we create that self-worth?
Okay. And I'm going to put this in dot point form for people to be able to implement, because this is massive. Like, this is, you know, my life's work is for people to feel the thing. So number one is to just sit, you know, with a journal, with a notepad, breathe. So if I put this in steps, number one, go and do the Cool to Be Conscious daily, or do a Wim Hof, whatever it is, go and breathe. Once you finish that and you're feeling centered, feeling grounded, step number two is write down, what do I want to feel in my life? And just allow the pen to do its thing. And again, when you're coming from this, I want you to have your soul focus and your attention in your heart. And if you come to the answer where you say, I don't know, please know that as soon as you say that, you shut off the door to what's underneath, because your subconscious takes that in. So if you're sitting there and you're not sure, just write down something that sounds decent, because what typically happens is it sparks the idea and then it starts to flow. So that's number two, is writing down what you want to feel. Then number three is writing down, what are the things that enable me to feel this? What are the things that I do? And that can be for self or others, but what are the things I do that enable me to feel this? Okay. Beautiful. And then number four is setting out a schedule or a structure, like a routine where you can tick it off, just a, you know, Excel spreadsheet, you know, just a couple of lines or a table on a page, and set those things out so that you're doing them every morning or every evening. And what happens is, number one, by you doing the thing that feels good, you feel the goodness, you feel that feeling. And you're like, hey, I did that thing, self-worth. Number two, is by consistently doing it. You're building that self-love, you're building that self-love cup, that feeling of fulfillment. And what that also does is goes, I'm giving myself this time. I value my self-time. So as a result, your value comes up, and self-worth is a reflection of value, self-value. It's the same thing. And so then when you start to do those things for yourself, you feel good in the moment. But then what also starts to happen is, because you're making this clear boundary and being integral with these things, it starts to shine across in every other area of your life. When someone goes to want you to do that thing that you're not wanting to do, and in the past you go, yeah, you know what, I'll do it. That part of you that goes, I've been showing up for myself in this way. Hey, I really appreciate you want me to do this, but this isn't what's feeling good for me. And what also happens then is other people's self-worth of you, their view of value of you, your time, your resources, your service increases. Perfect example to make sure this lands. If you go to book in, say for anyone listening, you go to book in a meeting or appointment with someone, and they go, yeah, anytime between Monday and Sunday, 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. Like, I'll be sweet. I'll make it work. We'll fit it in. You've got that. And then let's say, for example, you go to have a meeting or appointment with someone, and they go, I can do Thursday, 11:15 to 11:45 a.m. That's a specific time that we have, and I have to be gone at 11:45. The feeling that you have towards them is, geez, okay, like, righto, I got to show up in this way because, this is the time that we have together. Because they're valuing their time, it's a mirror. And then other people start to value your time, and thus you also give them the permission slip and plant the seed for them to start doing the same. Because when you show up in self-worth or self-value, they feel that, they see that, and they go, oh, I'd love to have that. Okay, I'm going to try that. And then that's where it starts. And this is why, to me, embodiment is the most important thing. I don't want people around me to teach it or speak it or, lecture on it. I want people that live it, embody it. And so that's the process for self-worth. Start laying out those things, go through those steps, and just watch what shifts. I've seen it in pro athletes, world champions. I've seen it with successful company owners and founders. I've seen it with people that are suicidally depressed. We just start doing these small things, and it's truly remarkable what happens. Like, there was a client recently that said I saved her life solely by getting her to love herself. I was just like, far out. All that came from was some simple routines. So if I've got someone that's literally, she's been hospitalized numerous times from suicidal attempts, and she's like, I now am at this point in my life, I've got a purpose, I've got a direction. And really all we've done is, hey, go and do these things that make you feel good about yourself and keep doing them. She's like a different human. There's no tricks, there's no mastery to it. It's just simple, but we all think it's such a big thing. Just go and do what I just said and enjoy.
I love that. And everyone can do it. Everyone can implement it, and it doesn't have to take up your whole day. It can be half an hour of your day, because I know people have busy schedules. This can be easily fit into your daily schedule. Easy.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the other part, is the fact that people have busy schedules is exactly why their self-worth is low, because they put the busy schedule before themselves. It's just a values thing. That's all that is. It's just going, as we were just talking about, I'm doing the thing that makes me busy to hopefully get the feel-good feeling, not realizing that the feel-good feeling actually comes over here on the other side when we do the thing for ourselves. So it's just like it's just kind of like an illusion, I guess you would say, that when we don't make time for ourselves, we'll always be in that feeling. And that's where a lot of people distract themselves by doing more, doing the thing that makes them busy.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why we're having this conversation right now, because a lot of people doing all the things are doing the things to feel better, but that's not what makes them feel better. So yeah, it's being able to take that little bit of time for yourself. And if you are that person saying, my schedule is too busy, it's too flat out, there's so much, I've got 3 kids, I've got 2 jobs, I've got to do this and I've got to do this, and whatever it is, it's like, I hear your story. I really, really get you. I understand what you're saying. I hear that and I feel that fully. You are valid in everything you are saying. But that validity will not create a change. That story is exactly, the reason you are where you are. And until we make a slight shift in that story, there will be no slight shift in the quality or the self-worth in our life.
Fuck. This was worth having you on, bro. This has been an epic podcast because I know the listeners are going to get so much value because I got a lot of value and I'm going to start implementing a lot of it into my life, especially the whole, putting your feeling, like focus on feelings first before the external goals and stuff. And I have realized it in the past that like when I've been out on bushwalks and stuff like that, doing the stuff that makes me feel free and feel good, off the back of that, I've had all these like cool ideas and stuff like that pop into my life because I've done those, those things and I've done the stuff that made me feel good instead of just going, working on podcasts, editing, stuff like that, because that doesn't allow my mind to open up and, think about all different stuff. So it's very powerful. I'm going to start doing it a lot more because, I need to start making that change in my life, especially if I do want to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. It all starts with me.
Certainly does, brother.
Fuck. Dude, we've been going for 2 hours, eh?
I said that in the start. I was like, we may go over.
That's all good, bro. I've loved every moment of it. I think we've pretty much covered it all, dude. Like, is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with? Any resources? Or we've gone over breathwork. You said your program comes out next month, is it? So how would people be able to get into that if they're interested?
Yeah, so they can do it two ways. Number one is sending me a message on Instagram, a direct message, Todd_Jarratt. So if you want to, right now while you're listening to the potty, if you just want to press pause or jump into that on Instagram, Todd, TODD_JARRATT. They can send me a message on there and say, hey, like, I want to know more about the identity system. The results you've had are incredible, sweet. And what I can do is put them on the wait list. I wanted to have like 15 people on the wait list when I first was like, I'm going to do this. Now I've got like 85. And so now the vision is 100 on the first. And so that's number one, reaching out to me directly. And then number two is reaching out to you, brother. So those listening, do you want them to message on the podcast page or your personal page?
Either or, doesn't bother me.
Okay.
Message me or message the podcast page and I'll put you in touch with Toddy.
Yeah. So send Nick a message and that way I know where they've come from, and that'll be epic too, because we know that it's creating an impact, you doing what you're doing. And that's the biggest thing, is they can do that, and then I'll be able to get the information out and to them in that wait list. And to give it a bit of context, the way I've set the identity system, what I was speaking about before. So the shift is 4 weeks based on teaching about directly into mindset and mindfulness, the conscious and the subconscious, the difference between beliefs and values, the power of breathwork and meditation, the basics. Like, they have to know this before they can even move into the next. So that's the 4 weeks. And there's 6 weeks, and that's the awakening. Now that's where we dive into, if you're going to say a Tony Robbins event or a Dr. John DeMartini event, or, Kerwin event, or whoever it may be, these mindset coaches around the world, where we primarily go into those, uncovering beliefs, changing values, making adjustments in terms of our routines and our habits, our vocabulary, completing relationships, doing all of these things that are the next level, where you'd be going to these 3-day immersions or 6-day immersions to go through these things. That's 6 weeks. And the final part is the ascension, and that's 10 weeks, and that's the identity system itself, purely focused on the identity system. And the reason it's set out in that way is because there's obviously 4, 6, 10, which makes 20 weeks in total. I was picking my brain for like 3 or 4 months last year, where I was like, how do I take the identity system to the world when people need to understand why this is so pertinent, potent, and why it's going to change the personal development space forever? They need to understand these first levels so that when they get to the ascension, the identity system, they get it. And it goes, holy crap. And so you can do 4 weeks, you can do the 4 and the 6, the 10 weeks, or you can do the whole 20 weeks. And there's obviously options for those. And I've done that because I want people to be able to start with one and then realize, okay, I want to be able to learn more if I do. And then you have that option to, or if people just want to go, I want to do the whole 20 weeks, what you've got or what you're doing is, I get it, like it's remarkable, then they can. So yeah, brother, that at this point in time, we'll launch on the March 28th, which, oh man, I'm so excited about, because I know that almost everyone I feel that will go through the program will want to become an identity coach after, because of how simple, it's not me, it's not my coaching, it's the system that does the work. And that's why with my pro athletes, I take them through, I coach them to begin with on how to do the system. And then for the most part, they just keep doing the system and they just keep going up and up and up and up. And then I can make any micro adjustments are needed. But the system does the work. And that's why, again, I've said this is a legacy thing for me, is I want this to go out to 200 people this year. We have 100 coaches, or, let's say 75 coaches next year. And then it's not a Todd Jarratt thing, it's the identity system, the identity coaches, and then it spreads globally. And then, because for me, I can only impact so many people, and some people won't resonate with me either. They'll go, this guy's not jacked enough. Damn, okay, gotta get more jacked. And then someone else will be like, he's too driven, I want more calm. And I'm like, so on and so forth. But that way there'll be identity coaches that are within each of those aspects. And that for me is how we're going to transform the world. So that's how they can access that resources wise. And all I can say is it's the reason that, I've gone through everything that I've gone through, is this system is what I was put on earth to create, and what I'm here to share to the world and for everyone listening right now. So thank you for the opportunity, brother.
No, man. Thank you for taking time out of your day to jump on. This has been awesome. And everyone listening, go follow Todd. If you're interested in the identity system, keep an eye out. You'll put posts up and stuff like that you can sign up, contact him. It's going to be good. Fuck. This has been an awesome chat. I want to finish off on one last question. Todd, when your time's all up and done in this earth, what are 2 words you'd want people to use to describe who you were as a person and the life that you lived?
Fulfilled and loving.
I love that.
Because fulfillment to me is that ultimate answer. And I know that the truth is love.
Awesome, brother. Dude, thank you so much. This has been a hell of a chat. It was worth the wait. Fuck yeah, bro. This has been awesome.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that's listened in, that's taken notes, that's ready to make that change and make that shift for themselves. And if you have questions, send me a message. And also know that I've got a process, like an ambassador process, that I'm putting together for the identity system. So if people want to be able to support it or grow it, that they can be involved in that too. So that's something that I put together, because like I said, I don't want to be chucking ads out there and stuff like that. It doesn't feel right in that way at this point. To me, it's about the people that believe in it, or they've heard of it and they go, I want to do this, or I want more people to be a part of this. They can. And if they have, referrals and whatnot like that, they can experience and earn commissions as well. So I wanted to be able to set it out where I can give back to people that are doing it, and also wanted to share it with others. So yeah.
Awesome, man. I'll definitely be sharing it around, because I believe in everything that you're doing.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All good, man. I can't wait to rewatch this. There's going to be so many gems. It's going to be awesome, man. And I can't wait to get up to the sunny coast. We're definitely going to have to connect and, do some breath work together, and whatever else comes up. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, 100%, brother. I'm all in for that.
Awesome, Barry. For the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in once again. I know you got some value out of this. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Give a rating on iTunes, Spotify. Give Toddy a follow on social media. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.
Yo!
Let's go.